Copy of this lovely portrait by Alexei Harlamoff, a Russian artist from the early 19th century in a sort of academic style. And we will start as soon as I focus and maybe adjust my white balance. Just a second. So we are going to start with a very simplified understanding of the head, as we're not going to use the Loomis method today. We're going to make the head sort of like an egg that's tilted. And I think I'm going to use sort of a cartoonist method where they would often just put a curved line across the front of the ball to indicate the turn of the head. And I'm going to fill in a little bit for the cranium. See, I'm already wishing I was using the Loomis method. I don't know, it's too late now. It's not too late? Okay, so if this was Loomis, we would be starting with a ball like this. We'd be thinking of line like that for the brow ridge. Right under that, we'd have a line for the eyes, nose, mouth, chin. It's not that different. The main thing is that you find a way to show in a very simplified schematic form that the head is turned just a little bit to our left, and it's not much tilted down. It's tilted just a tiny bit down, but not much. And a lot of you are still in the habit of adding the neck last. Let's always put that head on the neck and shoulders right from the start. When you're doing the shoulders, as I say every time, you want to think about, like, if you continued the line of the shoulder, you see where it would land? So that sort of shows me that I need to be down here. And I don't know if we're going to have time to do the hand. But let's just start to block it in. The other thing that you guys never think to do is block in the hair early on in the process. That can be really useful to just create a pattern of light and dark in your drawing that corresponds to the pattern of light and dark in the motif. So let's do that too. And I'm going to do a first shading on the hair and a first shading on the shawl. And just these really simple moves allow us to start to see this face in the world that we found it in. I guess the brow would actually be a little higher and the hairline is a little lower. We're going to do the kind of advanced method today, and we are going to shadow map the head before we've added any detail to it, because that too is going to allow us to start to see this as a volume in space and not as a bunch of lines on our papers. That's a huge difference, right? As soon as your brain sees it as a volume in space, you start to make better decisions about placement. And I'm going to block in a simple shadow shape around this eyelid. Well, I put this line, that was sort of my center line, and I can see that this shape, we're gonna feel free to move it, Finn. We're not stuck with it. We're not building the drawing out of measurements. We're using measuring to check our drawings. Like I can see in my drawing that my nose is drooping a little, so I'm just gonna bring this shadow shape up slightly and erase the bottom of it. Now the nose feels like it's the right length. And you see how much easier that is than drawing the nose and redrawing it 100 times in different places? We're just bumping little areas of shadow around. This is a very painterly way to draw. Because this is what painters do. All the oil painters, they have a rag in one hand and a brush in the other, and they're constantly trying things and then wiping it out and trying it again. That's how people who can't draw at all can still produce, with the help of a police sketch artist, they can produce a good likeness of somebody. By the sketch artist just tries different things, and they tell you, yeah, that looks good, or that doesn't look good. And that's all it takes. And I can see now that I need to add some of the hair over here. And if I lean back from my work and look, I'm going to get them as close to each other as I can get them. And I glance back and forth, and I'm able to see that this pattern of light and darks is similar enough that the differences are jumping out at me. And that's the key thing. You want to get to where you have enough similarities that you can easily spot the differences. I feel like my chin is wandering slightly back in the face, so I'm going to do that. My neck's a little thick. But that's, the neck's a little thick on this side too. So we're gonna stop here. Everybody should get to where they're just as happy that the pattern of light and dark is similar in their drawing to the motif. And my drawing is going to have errors, so don't look at just look back and forth between your drawing and the original. And this is really like another analogy that I like is it's like sculpture. You know, when you're first pounding a piece of clay into shape as a sculptor, you're going to start with really rough forms, and you're going to rapidly be pushing and pulling those forms back and forth until you've achieved an approximation of what you're aiming for. And that's what I'm doing right now. By moving these shadow edges, look what happens if I just move this shadow edge way to the right. I just built that cheekbone out, so it's like ridiculously wide now. And I can just bring it back in. It's like you're playing with light and dark, but in your brain you're playing with volumes. And that's how it should feel. And I'm always talking about how my conviction that drawing is a really essential component of developing your ability to think clearly about anything. And I think this is a big part of it, is just getting to that point where your brain thinks that you're touching a three-dimensional object in space and not making lines on paper. Okay. I'm sort of in the way here. I'm going to put myself back on this side. And we're going to pause for a minute. So we are going to zoom in on some features now. Ready or not. This drawing seems to have quite a lot of smudging, which I don't really teach. But we might have to smudge a little today. The important thing to see is just how these heavy eyelids, but look at how you would think this lash line would be very heavily drawn, but it isn't. It's very faint. This artist is not using any dark lines for outlines. All the darks are values. So there's a dark shadow at the outside of the eyelid here. It's a little bit of dark for these eyelashes. For anyone who's still in the habit of ignoring the fact that the lower lid is visible in a lot of portraits, you can see just how clearly the lower lid is drawn. We've got a very faint line where the white of the eye ends and another faint secondary line for the lash line. But this surface is, on the left, is in shadow. So there's another shadow under sort of the cup of the eye. And the iris is in full shadow. There's this lovely little hint of light on the eyelashes, which is really beautifully handled, and we're not going to be able to capture that today, but we can at least pause and admire it for a second. And then there's the shadow that stretches around the top of the lid between the eyelid and the eyebrow. And just on this bridge of the nose, it's a halftone, it's not a shadow. And it's all smudgy, so we can go ahead and try smudging a little to get that effect. Okay. Let's check our angles. If we go from the outside corner of the eye to the outside corner of the nose, you see how we're sloping down at about 45 degrees? So make sure that you're doing something similar in your drawing. And if we go straight up from here, we end up sort of along the edge of the bridge of the nose here. So I'm just triangulating my way to this point, which is the outside of the ala. I hope that made sense. So that's pretty much where I had my shadow, but I just wanted to double check a few things. And notice that this nostril is a little bit smaller because it's a little foreshortened, and this one is about 50% bigger. And there's really not much of a tilt here, but there's enough to really throw off the symmetry of the nose. And a couple of you were suggesting that the nose was facing us too much, and that's part of the problem. You're all going to be inclined in a pose like this to make the nose really symmetrical left and right, but it's not. And here's the shadow map along the bottom of the nose and a little cast shadow under the nose. And we're going to do a little smudging. And a little darkening through the core shadow. Can everyone read that reflected light at the tip of the nose? it's so subtly done, but it's really, really effective. It's a little bit of a kind of a romantic drawing, a little gauzy looking. I don't know, Maggie.
Do you think she's gonna want?
Okay, so does everyone know what I mean by gauzy? It's like in photography, the photographers before digital cameras, they used to put a piece of like nylon pantyhose or stockings over the lens to make everything kind of soft focus when they were painting, when they were photographing sort of romantic images of lovely women. Okay, so here's the central curve of the mouth, centered under the philtrum. Again, resist the impulse to make this symmetrical. This side of the mouth is relatively short, and this side of the mouth is relatively long. You see that? It's like 20% longer than the side on the left. The lip, upper lip, curls into shadow at the outside corners, and then it curls up into light. So here, we're not seeing shadow, we're just seeing that color change. So we're going to use a very light hand to indicate that with graphite. And the lip is really curling almost like halfway up to the nose. It's a very full upper lip, and there's a little crease, the center of the bottom lip, which is also very full. It's sort of a pouty expression. And there's a little bit of a shadow at each corner of the mouth that's going to be really important for getting that expression right. And now we're going to do this other eye. Let's just sort of imagine you're touching the bridge of the nose. This is common. Everyone pay attention for a second. On the nose, there's the form of the ala, and there's the bridge of the nose, and then there's this secondary piece of cartilage in here. You see that? It's like, so the shadow, it does something like this. So let's try to indicate that. That's the kind of structure that most artists don't capture unless they're aware that it's happening. But it's useful, so it's useful to know about.
Michelle, I gotta run down the hall a sec.
So we're going right up here, following the bridge of the nose into the eye socket. And we want to shade this eye socket before we render this other eye. So it really feels like we're sculpting the face, and we're going to pop that eye into a sculpted socket. Okay, so here is really critical point to find is where do we put this corner? So we're always working from what we've found to what we haven't found. That corner is located right above this nostril. So if we go straight up, there's where the corner of the eye should be. And you see I'm still guided by that little smudge I put there for the iris at the beginning. So I'm not bound to that little smudge, but it's still there and it's still guiding my hand. Here's the form of the lower lid. I'm going to do a first shading over the entire eyeball very lightly. And why did I do that? Because the white of the eye is in shadow. So I don't need any blank paper there. Now I'm looking for my little shark tooth on this side and my little shark tooth on the other side, which is barely visible. It's sort of under the lashes, and a sort of soft darkening of the pupil. So I just noticed maybe my eyebrow's a little low, so I'm going to lift that slightly just to get the expression right. Feels better. And do a little smudging in here. There's this odd dark right above these. The lashes are really brightly illuminated on this side. There's this little dark right above them. And the top of the iris right under the lid is going to go all the way to black. That's what makes the iris look like it's set behind the eyelids. Okay, we're going to go from there. We are going to finish this drawing in 5 minutes, so let's... Yep. I don't want to continue this next time. This is going to be a little study. So we're going to go a little darker along this edge. A little darker on the neck. A little darker along the cheekbone. We're obviously not going to have time to do all the details of the hair. The one form that I really haven't dealt with is the chin. So here we've got a core shadow running along the bottom margin of the chin. And a beautiful reflected light under that. And then a darkening of the cast shadow on the neck. That's something we see all the time. Anytime a head is lit from above, you're going to see, usually you're going to see some of the throat, and you're going to see that reflected light between this core shadow and the shadow on the throat. The shadow on the neck, I mean. And we can't really see her ears, so we don't have to draw ears. We're going to shade along the hairline. There's some cast shadow of the hair falling onto the forehead, like this. We're going to smudge that. And the last step, we have like 3 more minutes. I'm going to use the side of my pencil, and I'm going to just lay in some of these crazy darks to give the same effect for hair that this guy was producing. So obviously I'm not trying to follow every move. And this is perfectly okay. If you like how this looks, you can use the side of your pencil too. That's something I never do, but my sensibility is more like that of a printmaker, or I really taught myself to draw using an ink pen, so I really like to use the point. But this is This is the way you increase your repertoire of techniques, is by copying other people and seeing what they did, and then see if your aesthetic responds to it. And if you didn't have a chance to finish these drawings, you can have a little time next class to look at the original. But I need to wrap this video up, so. Notice there's still, even in this dark here, there's still a second dark value. It gets much darker through some of these shapes up here, and that's what gives us a sense that there's light striking the hair. And I'm going to go a little darker on my nostril, a little darker line between the lips, all the typical places. And if I had time, okay, I'll do this. We can smudge the whole thing. I think that's what this artist did. I hate doing this, but smudge the whole thing and then pick out some highlights with the eraser. And that's going to give it that extra something. And that's all we have time for today. So we're going to have to call it quits on this one. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time.